Hey there, it's Mr. Pouts, and here's your 2.9 lesson, which is all about percents. Hopefully, it's something that's familiar, but we're gonna really master this concept of um, finding percents and using percents. So our goals, which you should write down on your goal sheet, please, and at the end you'll have to self-assess. Do not forget to do this part. Um, there's two goals. One is to to solve percent problems using proportions, which we've been working with. And also, we're going to solve percent problems using the percent equation. So we'll show you what those are in just a bit. All right, you have one vocabulary word, and you probably could guess it. It was percent. So a percent is very simply a number out of 100. So if it's 39% chance of raining, that would be 39 out of 100 times it'll be raining. Okay. So there's a couple different ways you can find percents. And that's what it says up here. Our essential understanding says you can solve problems involving percents using either proportions or the percent equation. And those are basically the two main ways to do it. They're closely related. You'll find out that they're very close. If you write a percent as a fraction, you can use a proportion to solve a percent problem. That's how they're related. So we're going to do method one, which is the using a proportion, setting a proportion. And here's kind of the basis of what that is. It says here that you can represent A is P percent of B, or what percent of B is A. Those are two different ways to say it. Using the percent proportion below. In the proportion, B is the base, A is the part of the base. So remember, a proportion is two ratios set equal to each other. So this is kind of what we're looking at. Whatever you have for your part and your whole, that's set equal to the P over 100, and we're trying to solve for 100. An example is what it says, what percent of 50 is 25? So 25 would be the part, 50 would be the whole. So 25 over 50 equals P percent over 100. And what you could get there would end up being 50. So it'd be 50%. So don't focus too much on that, but that's our algebra and that's our example. Now we're going to do an example together, maybe two, of finding percent. So here we go. Maybe I'll move this up a little bit so you can see this too. It says what percent of 56 is 42? So you got to think, um, is which one is our whole and which one is our part? And I think 42, it says of 56, so that's going to be our whole. 42 is our part. Set that equal to P percent over 100. And then solve for P. So remember, we'll use our cross products. So 56 P times P equals 42 times 100. So that'd be 56 P equals 4,200. That's what it is if you multiply it out. And then you can divide both sides by 56 and get what P equals, because that'll cancel out. I'm going to pull out my calculator. You can feel free to use your calculator too. But 4,200 divided by 56 is 75. So that means that would be 75%. So 42 is 75% of 56. All right, and that's how you do it. One example I'd like to try on your own here then is this one right here. What percent of 90 is 54? So go ahead. All right, so I'm going to set it up the same way we did before. What percent of 90? So 90 is our total. 54 is our part. So that's equal to P over 100. When I solve, I get 90P equals 54 times 100, which is 5,400. Divide both sides by 90. I'm going to guess it's going to be around 60%, but that's my guess. 5,400 divided by 90. Aha! P equals 60. And that would be 60%. So that means that 54 is 60% of 90. All right? We're going to go on to method 2 here. Method 2 is called the percent equation. Again, it's pretty similar, but we're going to just make a little equation from it. So it says you can represent A as P% of B using the percent equation shown below. We talked about making equations from key math terms. So that's kind of what you're doing here. If it's A is P% of B, you can write that as A equals, because is would be equals, P% of represents times B. Right? And then you'd be plugging in for A and B. A is the part, B is the whole, and you'd solve for the P%. Same thing with this example right here. We have our algebra that we just talked about, and we have an actual example. It says what percent, this is just written a little bit different, what percent of 50 is 25? Okay, and you'd be writing it kind of flipped around here, but the what percent times 50, and then you have equals 25, and they just flipped it around there. Then you solve for P%, and that changes it to a percent. So we're going to do that with this one example right here. It says what percent, so we're going to say that's our P%, and I'm just going to use P, of 40, so P times 40, that'd be of, would be equals 2.5. All right, to solve for the P, we divide both sides by 40, so it'd be P%. And when you divide both sides by 40, P equals, so 2.5 over 40 gets you a decimal. This is where it's a little bit different. Now, it's not 0.625%, even though that's what it would look like. That is just a decimal number, and you need to change that to a percent. So if you want it to be out of 100, you would move the decimal, you'd multiply it by 100, because right now it's out of 100. You want to multiply it by 100, or move the decimal 2 places to the right. So really, it would be 6.25%. Okay, and I'm going to do the next one with you again, just to get that so that we know how to change from numbers to percents, from decimals to percents. All right, it says what percent of 84 is 63? So it would be P% times 84 equals 63. Divide both sides by 84. You get P equal to whatever 63 divided by 84 is. Oops. 63 divided by 84 will be 0.75. And hopefully then you can recognize you move that one to the spots to the right. 0.75 is the same thing as 75%. Because 0.75 is 75 out of 100, which would be 75%. It says use the percent equation to solve, then use the percent equation for answers. So since it says to use the percent proportion to find it, we'll do that in red over here just real quick. So we have 63 as the part of the whole 84. Set up our proportion for P over 100. Cross multiply, you get 84 times P equals 63 times 100, which is 6,300. We divide both sides by 84. We'll do that up here. 6,300 divided by 84. It's going to get you 75. And that's 75%, which is exactly the same thing that we got the other way. Okay, you see how they both work? Both about the same amount of work, but they will both find you the same answer. I have 2 word problems here that we'll go through quickly, and they're not going to be too much different than what we did. Although let's just read it through. For problem 3, it says a dress shirt that normally costs $38.50 is on sale for 30% off. What is the sale price of this shirt? All right, so this is a little bit different. If you look at it, it's a little bit different because we're not finding the percent of something. Well, we maybe are, but we're trying to find the price of a shirt that's 30% off. So if you think about it, um, what percent of the original is going to be the price? Or is the sale price going to be? If it's 30% off of the 100% the original, then it's going to be 70% of the original. So we have our 100, we subtract 30, and that's where we get 70% of the original. And that's actually how you find the sale price. If it's 30% off, that would mean it's going to be 70% of the original. So you do 38.50 times 70%, which is the same as 0.7. Okay, 70% of 38.50. That would just be multiplying the two together. And 38.50 times 0.7 is 26.95. Now, if you tried doing 30%, so multiplying it by 30 or zero point 0.3, that's going to be way smaller. It's going to be about 12, less than $12. And that doesn't seem like, if it's 30% off, that wouldn't quite work. So some of this, if you do something like that, check it to see if it'll make sense. Let's just do one more. It says a family sells a car to a dealership for 60% less than they paid for it. So if they paid 9,000, that would be your 100%. 60% less than that would be for 40%. So 100 minus 60%, because it's 60% less than 100% of it. So it'd be 40% of the original. And so we're going to take that, we're going to take our 9,000, multiply it by the 40%, which is 0.4. And I got 3,600. So they sold it for a lot less than what they bought it for. But that would be 40% of the original there. All right. Now that's all we're doing for this percent one. I hope you took down some of these examples. If you didn't, write down at least a couple of them. I would go back and write them down because you can always skip back. But now with these goals, I'd like you to also self-assess. Do not forget to self-assess on your goal sheet. Don't save it. Do it now. All right. But that's it for section 2.9. We'll see you again for section 2.10.